My name is Dawn Chatty. I'm professor of forced migration and anthropology at the university. I'm a social anthropologist with long experience in the Middle East. I began my career by focusing on the forced settlement of nomads, of pastoralists, of people who were being expelled from the traditional territory. But once I joined the Refugee Studies Centre, I turned my attention to look at refugees in the region, namely Palestinian refugees. I focused on refugee youth, and I've now extended that research to include Sahrawi refugee youth in Algeria, as well as Afghan refugee youth in Iran. And I'm very interested in the commonalities and differences in the way these youth really express their agency. I've maintained my interest both in the dislocation of mobile people, as well as the special vulnerabilities of refugees in the Middle East. This part of the world is particularly interesting because very few countries in the Middle East have actually signed the 1951 Convention on the Status of Refugees. And this is the main legal instrument internationally which defines who is a refugee and also defines the protection that they can expect from the modern nation. And instead, there is a particular protocol called the Casablanca Protocol, which applies particularly to Palestinian refugees and encourages the states in the region to provide them with temporary protection. But for the most part, other refugee communities are not covered by any kind of international or regional agreement. And they basically rely on what I call a societal norm of extending hospitality as a duty to people in exile. Unfortunately, forced migration is a defining feature of the modern Middle East. If I just go back to the middle of the 19th century, I can talk about the waves of 2 or 3 million Muslim refugees, Circassians, Chechens, Dagestani, who fled the border zones between the Ottoman Empire and the Tsarist Russian Empire. They were pushed into the Balkans, and then they were pushed into Anatolia and into Jordan and Syria. About a quarter of these peoples perished on the way. They were followed by the Armenians. About 1 million Armenians were forced out of eastern Anatolia onto death marches, really, into Syria along the Euphrates River. They were followed by Kurds. Hundreds of thousands of Kurds suddenly began fleeing their homeland as this traditional area that belonged to the Kurds as a culture was divided up between 4 modern nation states, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And then we have Palestinian refugees. About 750,000 Palestinians fled Palestine in 1948 to the surrounding areas. And now in the 21st century, we have another 2 million Iraqi who have fled Iraq, with another 2 million who have fled their homes but not crossed the border within Iraq. And today we're seeing hundreds of thousands of Syrians also fleeing the armed conflict in different parts of Syria and moving into Lebanon, Turkey, and Jordan. So it is an area defined by forced migration, unfortunately.